The question is not are we going to have a major earthquake in Southern California, but rather when are we going to have an earthquake in Southern California? And when it comes, will you be ready? Today's guest, Paul Weinberg with the City of Santa Monica's Office of Emergency Management, is one of the top guys making sure that our city and you are prepared. Welcome, Paul. Let's talk.
Thanks, Rochelle.
So first of all, what are the top 3 types of disasters or emergencies Santa Monica may encounter?
Well, based on our geology and our history, earthquakes are our primary threat. We just live in earthquake country. All of us know that. Whether they're big or small, they're just a reality of living in California. If you take steps to prepare for an earthquake, you can be ready for any event that happens. Other events that we prepare for include, terrorist attacks, because we are a high-profile city. We're an international city with lots of recognizable landmarks, as well as major incidents like the Los Angeles Marathon or the Glow Festival, ones where we have large gatherings of people. These are all events that the city takes seriously and prepares for, but earthquakes are our #1 threat, and we prepare as best we can to not only to respond, but to recover as well.
Yes. So the Office of Emergency Management, okay, what exactly is it? Where did it come from? How did it start? Kind of give us the background.
Sure.
Okay.
Well, the Office of Emergency Management was created in 2011. The city manager, Rod Gould, decided that earthquake preparedness and emergency preparedness is so important and so vital to this community that we really need a dedicated division. I've been with the city 10 years serving as the emergency service coordinator, and I had been under the fire department previously, and it was decided that we really need to dedicate an entire division to preparing this community. We have 90,000 residents. We have hundreds of thousands of people in town every day. We've got a large beach. We've got tourists. We just have a major responsibility, and the Office of Emergency Management was created to prepare the whole community. Not just the residents, not just the businesses, but the tourists, all segments of the community.
So when it was created, I mean, you created it because you needed to be able to respond in case of an emergency, but how many first responders do you have?
Well, any given day, there's only about 30 firefighters in town. And like I said before, we have 90,000 residents. And so one of the first tenets of emergency management, emergency preparedness is we need to really be on our own. It's got to be understood in the community that we're responsible for ourselves and our neighbors. And disaster preparedness really starts with the individual. If I know that I'm prepared and I've got 7 to 10 days worth of food and water at home, and my neighbor does, and as that grows, my block will be prepared, and you can build these groups. But it's really, in terms of first responders, we don't have enough to meet the needs of everybody following a major disaster. And that's why the Office of Emergency Management was created. We're just, the numbers, they don't add up that we can provide the support. And that's why we rely on the community to get prepared as well. The city recognizes that being recovered and being prepared are vital to the city being a resilient city, and that's our goal. And it starts at the individual level.
Right. And so I'm sure you've been in this business a long time. You said, what,
Yes.
20 years already?
I've been with the emergency preparedness discipline for about 22 years. And it started after the Loma Prieta earthquake up in the Bay Area. And it's just it's a incredible, empowering field to be in, because it's something where you can go home, you can learn one step to get prepared. If it's putting a flashlight under your bed and a sturdy set of shoes, you're taking that step being prepared. If you can work on a family plan, if you can talk to your family, what are we going to do if the earthquake happens today and I'm downtown Los Angeles and you're in Santa Monica? How are we going to reunify? There's just basic steps that we can all learn from, and that's really the goal, and that's why it's rewarding.
And it's organic because you're learning from other disasters. Tell me what you took away, well, most recently, what happened in Boston,
Sure.
But Sandy, Katrina, of course. I mean, how do you learn from those disasters and you take away what's important to change or to do here?
That's a great question. Really, disaster preparedness science is all about best practices. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, you have to have these disasters to learn from them. So whether it's the Boston Marathon or Katrina or Superstorm Sandy, there's things that we learn. For example, relevant to this topic, Hurricane Katrina really taught us about the seniors and those with access and functional needs and being prepared, and the government's role in really providing services for them and understanding what human behavior is and giving good information and trying to get people prepared. Superstorm Sandy was another example of getting people prepared and providing them an avenue and information of how to evacuate or how to get the information out to vulnerable populations. And they're it's so imperative to think about what you're going to do to prepare for a disaster or respond and not wait for it to happen. So if you've got a plan, if you have a buddy system, especially in the senior community, that's something that we learned from these past disasters. If you have somebody that lives in your building that you know might need a little extra help either getting out or just somebody to check on them, have that as part of your plan. It's these little steps that we take, but as a community, it'll make us more resilient.
So just establish those, start to think about having a plan, reaching
right.
out, having neighbors check on you. How do you communicate? I know that you have an alert system. Tell us how that works.
Sure. In Santa Monica, we have what's called the SM Alerts program, and it's free for anyone to register. You can go online to smalerts.net. You can call our Office of Emergency Management, and we'll talk you through and sign it up if you're not computer proficient. And what it is a notification system which will allow you to be notified by the city through email, through text messages, through phone calls, regular phone calls to a landline or a cell phone in the event of emergency, and giving you good information of what to do, how to stay safe, how to prepare yourself. And it's one of the main things of being prepared for an emergency is to be informed. That's really one of the major steps, and that's a great way to know what the city is asking you to do to take care of yourself.
And so would that include where to go?
It would. Following a disaster, it's not, we wouldn't use the system to tell people to buy emergency preparedness goods, but following an earthquake, we would use the system saying, there's traffic impacted in this area. If you're looking to, set up a shelter, here's where you can go depending on your neighborhood. Just getting out good information. We do utilize it at times during the LA Marathon, which has come here for the last 4 years, and we use it just to get out information to our partners and our planning partners. It's also a great resource for our internal staff to communicate, to recall the city employees in times of a disaster. It's a fantastic notification system. And again, information is power, and getting the information to the population is a tricky task under the best circumstances. This is one of the best ways to get information out in times of need.
So are they text or phone call, or how do you deal with people that don't have cell phones, or how do you deal with people that are not computer literate?
Sure.
I mean, how do you get to those populations that are isolated by themselves, et cetera? I mean, there's got to be different ways for different groups, right?
Sure, absolutely. And again, the system is designed, again, if you're completely computer illiterate, if all you have is a telephone, you could call us and we'll sign you up and make sure that your phone will ring in times of a disaster. And again, as part of your plan, if you even don't have a telephone, part of your plan would be my neighbor has a phone and has a system, and they're going to check on me. One of the beauties of the system is, say you have a parent who's a senior who lives in Santa Monica, but you live in North Dakota. You could sign up from North Dakota to be notified of an event in Santa Monica, and then you could call your parent and give them information in a very, familiar way. So it's you don't have to live in Santa Monica to sign up for it, and a lot of people sign up because they've got family or friends who live in Santa Monica that they want to know what's going on to provide them good information.
So Paul, tell me the difference, and there's probably no difference, between an emergency and a disaster, and how do we respond differently, or do we?
Sure, that's a good question. What we're moving away from actually is an emergency is something that can probably be handled by your first responders who are not stretched thin in resources. So if there is a single car accident, your fire department, your police are going to come, they're going to respond, they're going to take care of people. Even if we talk about something like the Northridge earthquake, which was an earthquake, it was a moderate earthquake. Santa Monica suffered tremendous financial impacts, but we didn't have any loss of life. There were some minor injuries. That was a moderate earthquake. What we're preparing for is the catastrophic disaster, something similar to Hurricane Katrina. Elements of it were in Sandy, where an entire region is impacted that your services are not there. An example for Hurricane Katrina, you would have had to drive maybe 20 hours to get hot food, hot water, gas, somewhere to stay. The Northridge earthquake, that day, you probably could have driven 20 miles or so, and you would have found a place to stay. You would have had your power back on in a few days. It's thankfully, to this point, Santa Monica has not been impacted by a catastrophic event, but that's what the planners in Southern California are planning for, is when we are impacted and services are out for extended weeks. And that's why we implore people to have food, water, an emergency plan, and to stay informed.
And that's probably, isn't that what the city manager, he was in some other location, and he saw what was going on, and
Correct.
that's why he created the.
Prior to coming to Santa Monica, he was in Poway down in San Diego area where there were massive fires at one point, and the response, there are only so many first responders that can be there to put out the fires, to set up shelters, and that's why he created the Office of Emergency Management. One of the things the city's taken the lead in is developing a shelter team. Just in case resources of the Red Cross and other service agencies are stretched thin, we need to be prepared to take care of our citizens. And so we've trained a number of people from our Community and Cultural Services branch. We've run through some facilities and really understanding that based on our location, our geography in Southern California, we may be on our own, more so than other communities, because we are just at the end of the map, and we know that resources are going to be stretched.
So basically, city staff is actually trained.
That's right.
First, before you go out into the community.
That's right. And while the best plans, one of the first failures in disasters is always the plan. And that's what we prepare for, is understanding in the best case, everybody will be at our aid. Los Angeles Fire Department, the Red Cross, all the other neighboring cities, they'll be there to help us. Similar to the farmers market tragedy 10 years ago, as unfortunate and as awful that was, we had the resources of the entire Southern California first responders there. So within, 10, 15 minutes, you had hundreds of responders from Los Angeles, Culver City, Beverly Hills, and Santa Monica rendering aid. In the catastrophic event that we're planning for, all of those jurisdictions are going to be busy with their own hands full, and they're not going to be able to come to Santa Monica, and that's what we're preparing for.
And so that's when staff would be engaged, and that's when you would engage other groups.
And the main other group is the community, and that's really understanding that the city is not going to be able to respond to every single resident of Santa Monica following a major earthquake, and that's why the time to prepare is now. One of the analogies I say is we look at what happened in Superstorm Sandy or Katrina, where you could watch a storm coming for days and days on CNN and prepare for it and take steps and either evacuate or go to Home Depot and buy the tools that you want or water. We don't have that luxury in California for earthquakes. We don't know when it's going to happen. So the question I would ask is, why not prepare now? If we know something's going to happen, we don't have the luxury of watching it on TV days in advance, take the time now to prepare.
So in your experience, what has changed in the way we deal with emergencies in general from when you first started working in the field to now?
That's a good question. A couple of things have changed. I think one, based on the amount of disasters that we've had worldwide and the coverage that they get, people are taking the initiative to get prepared. I think people are realizing they don't want to be the 700th person in line at the Ralph's after it opens 3 days after an emergency. They're taking steps now to prepare. I also think technology has changed, and that's helped with the emergency planning, whether it's our alert system, whether it's using something as simple as your cell phone. Assuming that it works and it's got some power in it, you can put everything you need into your emergency plan on your phone. We ask you to be informed. Well, most cell phones now have radio capability or web capability. You can type in your notes pad emergency plans. You've got all your contact information. There's great free disaster preparedness apps where you can track emergencies, track shelter locations, and that's been one of the changes. And this growing field of emergency management, of the community really understanding, I have to take the initiative to be prepared.
They have to take responsibility for their own.
They do, and that's a message that has changed over the years from the government standpoint, which is we really want people to understand we may not be able to get to you for a number of days because we are responding to the major incidents, and an individual needs to be prepared to be on their own. They need to have the food, the water, the special medications. They need to take care of their pets, anybody in their household. That's our goal, is to get people prepared.
It sounds complicated, and we're going to talk more about it when we get back. So do the most good for the most people. Sign up for Santa Monica Alerts. Make a plan. Be prepared. Learn more about responding intelligently in emergencies when we return on Let's Talk.
Hey, Mom. Yes, I'm home. Saved you some dinner.
Plan now for a major earthquake. Contact the Santa Monica Office of Emergency Management. Don't be caught in the dark.
It exists solely to protect the community from loss of life and property during the time of a disaster. It also prepares residents, businesses, visitors, and others in how to respond to and recover from incidences and emergencies. Paul Weinberg, our guest today, coordinates all this and more. So, Paul, I want to talk about the Emergency Operations Center. It is so cool. Can you tell me about the center where all of the action takes place, where you can see every part of the city? Tell me about it. It's just so exciting.
Absolutely. So the city created our Office of Emergency Management 2 years ago. And one of the first tasks was to build the Emergency Operations Center. And an Emergency Operations Center is where the coordination to any incident or disaster, it takes place. And we train year round. It's a wonderful facility. We bring in all of the key people from all these key departments in the city, and they learn how to respond in a disaster. It's filled with great audiovisual equipment and computer systems and communication systems, and there's seats for about 36 people, and we have an EOC, which is short for Emergency Operations Center, an EOC team of about 65 people that are trained, and they train all year to respond to disasters, and they respond each section. So the system is divided into 5 sections. There's an operations section. Those are basically the doers, the police, the fire, the street crews who are out there in the field doing the actual work out in the field. There's a planning component where they're out there documenting and writing our plans and keeping us on point of what we're supposed to do. There's a logistics section, which are the gatherers. They're the ones who are getting us the resources we need, whether it's personnel, equipment, food, water. There's a finance section, which is very important to document the cost and to track us and to pay for our goods. And there's a management section where our city manager he's the EOC director, and they oversee all of the policy to this, to our response. One of the things that Santa Monica's done in the past few years with the Los Angeles Marathon coming is we've been able to activate our Emergency Operations Center and really get our hands dirty, so to speak, in terms of how do we respond to 25,000 runners coming into Santa Monica. If you remember a few years ago, the marathon happened on the coldest and wettest day in Santa Monica history, and I remember vividly having to call into our partners in Los Angeles saying the first 30 finishers, who happened to be the people in the wheel cranks, the hand crank wheelchairs, all needed to be taken to the hospital because they were potentially hypothermic, and they rode 26 miles in the rain and in the cold, and every runner that finished the race in Santa Monica was potentially hypothermic. And how does the city manage thousands of people coming to the finish line and needing medical aid? Fortunately, we have such great partnerships that were coordinated through the EOC and year-round in our training that we were able to use the hotels, our business partners, and get those runners into a safe, warm environment quickly so they didn't all turn into hypothermic victims. But the Emergency Operations Center really is the brainchild or the center point of the emergency response, and it's where we can gather our information, we can dole out our resources in a responsible way, and just provide the highest level of coordinated response possible.
So basically, there's 3 of you in the division, but you got 65 members. They each have a role, and they're training nonstop. So basically,
That's right.
What's a day in the life in the center? I mean, for the staff.
Sure. Well, you know what? It varies day by day. As we get close to the marathon, most of our time is spent preparing for the marathon.